I'm just being myself. So I think probably it was different several years ago where I couldn't be as vocal and I had to wear nude pantyhose all the time. Let's be honest.
When your own mother says enough is enough, that's not bad luck. That's the truth catching up to you. And for Meghan Markle, that moment came in the most brutal way possible. Her mom, Doria Ragland, the woman who practically raised Archie and Lilibet while Meghan and Harry chased Hollywood dreams, just called it quits on them. She's finally had enough.
I think that when I sit with it for a second here, I just want people to know that I'm a real person.
Now listen, staff can quit, assistants can resign, even friends can walk away. But when the grandmother, the rock of the entire household, decides that she can't take it anymore, that's a whole different level of messy. And here's the kicker. Doria wasn't some occasional visitor. She was in the trenches, midnight feeds, tantrums, endless chaos. She gave up her own life to keep that house from falling apart, and still, she walked. So now you've got to ask, if even Meghan's own mother can't stick around, what's really going on inside those Montecito walls? Because behind the Netflix deals and red carpet smiles, the truth is a whole lot uglier, and tonight, we're pulling back the curtain.
I had to wear nude pantyhose all the time. Let's be honest, that was not very myself. I hadn't seen pantyhose since movies in the 80s when they came in the little egg. That felt a little bit inauthentic, but that's a silly example. But it is an example of when you're able to dress the way you want to dress and you're able to say the things that are true.
Forget the Spotify millions. Forget Harry's memoir and Meghan's carefully staged interviews. Because behind all that glitter, there was only one person keeping the Sussex household from crumbling, and it wasn't Meghan or Harry. It was Doria Ragland. Let's be real, most grandmothers pop in for birthdays, bake cookies, maybe babysit on a Friday night, but Doria didn't just visit, she moved in. She became the 24/7 unpaid caretaker who handled everything from diaper disasters to calming tantrums, while Montecito's most dramatic couple jetted off to secure their next big deal. And it wasn't glamorous. We're talking midnight bottle feeds, endless school runs, and keeping the kids steady while the media circus outside spun out of control. Doria gave up her yoga classes, her career, and her freedom, all because her daughter needed her. Insiders say Harry adored her. Some even whispered he leaned on Doria more than he leaned on Meghan. She had that calming presence, the kind of steady hand Harry never felt in his own childhood, and Meghan, well, she leaned hard too. But here's the sting. Sacrifice has an expiration date. You can only put your own life on pause for so long before the cracks start to show, and for Doria, those cracks turned into a breaking point. Because no matter how much she did, how much she gave, Meghan's house wasn't getting calmer. It was only getting messier, and deep down, Doria knew this wasn't just a favor anymore. This had become her whole life.
Meghan, who screamed, "Don't leave me, don't leave me," and Harry, who actually has leaned on his mother-in-law to be helpful emotionally to him.
Now, let's talk about the one chapter Meghan wishes the world would forget: the nanny disaster of 2019. Archie was barely born when the revolving door of childcare staff began spinning faster than anyone could keep up. The first night nurse was gone after just 2 nights. The second didn't last much longer, and within 6 weeks, Meghan and Harry had already burned through 3 nannies. 3! In less time than it takes for most parents to figure out how to work a stroller. Tabloids had a field day. Headlines screamed about the curse of the Sussex nursery. And sure, Meghan's camp brushed it off. Wrong fit, long hours, blah blah blah. But when every professional quits in record time, you can't blame the staff anymore. At some point, the common denominator isn't the nannies, it's the household. And here's where it gets messy. Agencies allegedly started whispering warnings to candidates. Do you really know who you'll be working for? Nannies had to sign airtight NDAs before setting foot in Montecito. And forget a normal interview, rumors say Meghan's hiring process felt more like an audition, with hopefuls paraded in front of her like contestants on a reality show. But while those professionals could escape, Doria couldn't. She wasn't an employee, she was family. Which meant when yet another nanny stormed out, who do you think picked up the slack? Grandma. every single time. And make no mistake, this wasn't just babysitting. Doria was left holding together a household drowning in chaos, with babies crying, parents complaining, staff quitting, all while paparazzi camped outside the gates. It became a cycle. Staff came in, staff quit, and Doria cleaned up the mess over and over again. But here's the part that makes you pause, because this wasn't a temporary crisis. This was a pattern. And if even seasoned, trained childcare professionals couldn't hack it for more than a few weeks, how exhausting must it have been for Doria? At least the nannies could resign, but Doria, she was trapped by loyalty, bound by love, and that meant she carried the full weight of Meghans' chaos. Until finally, she couldn't anymore.
I think a lot of that gets lost in what can be super dehumanizing when you look at the clickbait culture and how much is written about someone. It's like, no, my friends have to read those things.
Now, here's where things get really confusing. Because on one hand, we've got years of headlines about nannies quitting faster than household plants die. But on the other hand, we've got Meghan herself, just this year, gushing on a podcast about their amazing nanny who's been with them for 5 years. 5 years! Sounds neat and tidy, doesn't it? Too neat. Because how do you go from burning through 3 nannies in 6 weeks to suddenly claiming you've had the same one since 2019? Either Meghan's memory is short, or that's a little convenient PR spin. And that isn't the only contradiction. Behind the scenes, palace aides have whispered for years about how difficult Meghan could be. Remember the so-called bullying probe that Buckingham Palace quietly launched? Well, they confirmed they changed HR policies afterward, but buried the actual findings so deep that the public never saw them. Former staffers even nicknamed themselves the Sussex Survivors Club. Meghan, of course, denied every bit of it, calling the whole thing a calculated smear campaign. But here's the irony. While Meghan paints a picture of stability and loyalty, the insiders tell another story. A household where staff were micromanaged, nitpicked, and sometimes reduced to tears. Even Samantha Cohen, a seasoned royal aide, admitted the turnover was brutal. So, which Meghan is real? The one who beams in interviews about her wonderful support system? Or the one insiders describe as impossible to please, even when her own mother was picking up the pieces? That's the contradiction that keeps people whispering. Because if Meghan can't keep staff but insists everything's perfect, somebody's not telling the full story. And when it comes to the Sussexes, the truth is usually a lot messier than the press releases.
I knew things were getting pretty stark, but now it has emerged that the strain is so bad that Doria Ragland has said enough is enough. I'm moving out of Montecito for good.
The moment rumors leaked that Doria had quietly slipped out of Montecito, the media went into a frenzy. Overnight, her exit became the hottest headline in town, and depending on which outlet you read, the story twisted in every direction imaginable. Pro-royal papers had a field day. Even Meghan's own mother couldn't take it, they roared, painting Doria's departure as the ultimate indictment of Meghan's impossible behavior. Meanwhile, Meghan-friendly corners of the press spun it softer. Doria deserves self-care after years of sacrifice. But here's the juicy bit. Meghan absolutely hates losing control of the narrative. She's built her empire on carefully staged interviews, glossy photo shoots, and endless PR spin. And suddenly, her mom, the woman she leaned on as the perfect support system, had vanished without a single Instagram statement or Netflix-ready soundbite. The silence was deafening. Oh, and Harry? Well, insiders whispered that he was spiraling. Because let's be honest, Harry leaned on Doria too. She wasn't just a grandmother, she was the steady hand he craved, the mother figure he lost when Diana died. Without her, Harry looked less like the strong modern dad he pretends to be, and more like a man-child, suddenly deprived of his safety net. So, the question hanging in the air was simple. If even Doria walked away, what does that say about Meghan and Harry's household? Because here's the thing. Friends can distance themselves, staff can resign, hell, even Netflix can cancel a deal, but when your mother slips out the back door with her dignity intact, that's not just gossip. That's humiliation, and Meghan knows it.
Why would you torpedo your own launch? You know, deliberately or accidentally? Why would you put out this
Well, she
interview?
didn't actually, because Taylor Swift did, which was utterly fantastic, wasn't it?
Here's the uncomfortable question nobody in Meghan's camp wants to touch. Who actually raised Archie and Lilibet? Because while Meghan was busy perfecting her survivor image on Oprah and Harry was locked away writing his pity party memoir, somebody still had to handle bedtime routines, school runs, and scraped knees, and spoiler alert, it wasn't mom and dad. Sources say Doria was the one steady presence through it all. She wasn't just popping in with hugs and cookies, she was cooking meals, reading bedtime stories, and making sure the kids had some sense of normality while their parents were off playing power couple. Archie especially leaned on her, insiders say, during those chaotic years when Meghan and Harry were reeling from the royal exit. And here's where it stings. Meghan allegedly started noticing her children running to grandma first, crying on Doria's shoulder, preferring her bedtime stories over Meghan's carefully orchestrated photo ops. Imagine being the mom but realizing you're not the favorite. Insiders even whisper that Meghan grew jealous, worried her own kids saw Doria as the real parent, and let's be honest, can ya blame them? We all know children cling to stability, and the only stable figure they had was grandma. So when Doria finally walked away, the question wasn't just about childcare, it was about loyalty, about the bond that Meghan, with all her Hollywood polish, couldn't match. And if the one person Archie and Lilibet trusted most decided that she was done, well, that says more than any interview Meghan could ever give.
Like, I have real best friends, the same ones since I was 17. I'm a real mom. I choose to go and do school pickup and drop off, but I do that under a landscape that is created that forgets that I'm a real person.
Remember when Harry swore up and down he'd never be the cold, distant father he grew up with? He promised he'd break the Windsor curse, be the hands-on dad, the modern parent. Yeah, about that. Well, insiders are saying Harry's reality as a dad is starting to be a contrast to what he swore he'd never do. The rumors are claiming he has slid right back into the very pattern he once condemned. Distracted, detached, and perfectly happy to let someone else, usually Doria, carry the weight of parenting. And the irony is brutal. Here's a man who spent years criticizing his own father for being absent, yet behind closed doors, he leaned on his mother-in-law like she was the glue holding everything together. Need someone to keep Meghan calm after another PR meltdown? Well, call Doria. Need someone to hold the kids steady while Harry jets off to polo matches? Again, Doria. But when even she had enough, it left a gaping hole. And suddenly the fairy tale couple looked exposed. Because here's the thing, if Harry wasn't stepping up before, what are the chances that he'll start now without Doria propping the whole thing up? That's the chilling part. History doesn't just echo, sometimes it repeats word for word, and for Archie and Lilibet, that might mean growing up with the same kind of distance Harry swore he'd never pass down.
Doria is happy with how the family is doing now. She's ready to concentrate on her own life, but remains a key part of the family.
And if there's one thing Meghan Markle knows, it's survival. When the walls close in, she doesn't retreat, she rebrands, and insiders are saying that's exactly what she's planning now. Because make no mistake about it, Doria walking away wasn't just a personal blow, it was a PR disaster. Meghan has built her image on the idea of family support and resilience, and suddenly, the one person who actually embodied all that quietly disappeared. No press release, no staged smile, just gone. So, what's Meghan's next move? Rumors are already swirling about another big sit-down interview. A chance to reclaim the narrative, paint herself once again as the misunderstood survivor. Maybe she'll frame Doria's exit as self-care. Maybe she'll spin it as protecting her mother's privacy. After all, Meghan has always been a master of flipping bad headlines into sympathy points, but here's the catch. People are starting to notice the pattern. Staff leave, friends drift, even family steps back, and somehow Meghan is always the victim in her own story. At some point, that act wears thin. And yet, you know she won't let the tabloids have the last word. She'll fight to control the story because visibility is her lifeline. But without Doria softening her image, every move Meghan makes will be scrutinized harder than ever before. Because when your mother walks out, even Hollywood can't edit that away.
First on her Netflix series with Love Meghan. Second, an Instagram post where she mocked her daughter, who, let's be honest, is a total pain in the behind.
So, here we are. The woman who held the Sussex household together is gone. The grandmother who gave up her life to raise Archie and Lilibet, who sacrificed her peace, freedom, independence, walked out the Montecito gates in silence. And that silence is louder than any tabloid headline, louder than any Oprah interview, and louder than any Netflix documentary Meghan could script. Because staff can quit, friends can distance themselves, but when your own mother leaves, that's not gossip, that's a red flag. The question now isn't just who looks after the kids, it's bigger. What does this say about Meghan's world? About a couple so obsessed with image but unable to keep the one person who actually provided stability? Maybe Meghan spins this. Maybe she pulls off another reinvention, another glossy cover shoot about resilience, but the cracks are showing. And this time they're not on palace walls, they're in her own home. So we'll leave you with this. If even Doria, the Rock, the unsung hero, couldn't survive Montecito's chaos, what happens next? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.